comedian Jon Stewart unloaded on President Donald Trump and his MAGA supporters following the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's visit to the White House this week.
Donald Trump hosted, this was the whole thing. Do you remember the Mamdani, all these right-wing guys are like, how dare he take a picture with an imam? Has he forgotten the lessons in 9/11? One guy came after me. Has Jon Stewart, he's talking pleasantly with Mamdani. This is a guy, has he forgotten 9/11? Don't you ever ask me about that. And second of all, your guy hosted a live golf tournament in the shadow of the towers with the Saudis and palled around with them.
And here's some more from that.
For any of those right-wing guys that want to go out there and criticize the associations between, anybody that would even talk to Mamdani, because clearly, he's so out there with his points of view.
You want me to start? Or you
go first.
Look, I think this week has been interesting. I think that there are several different leaders that we have dialogue with that we're going to judge how they're running their country. And people are going to look to the U.S. as they have when I'm traveled, like, what the heck y'all got going on over there, right? Obviously not human rights violations, but still things. I think that what has been interesting to me this week is like when the reporter, Mary Bruce, who works for ABC, was asking the real questions. I think it's a journalist's job, and President Trump's response to that, getting so annoyed by her asking real questions, to me is problematic in these moments. So if you're going to invite somebody like the Saudi Crown Prince, you have to expect that since he hasn't been here for 7 years, since the Biden administration accused him of having a journalist killed, and we haven't really addressed that fully, and now he's back in the presence of American reporters, that they're going to ask about that. You have to assume that she's going to ask about blurring the lines of his personal businesses that he says he has no attachment to, but his sons are actually running, that are working directly with the Saudi government to build properties in Saudi Arabia. That's a natural question. So when he and the president and the same supporters are so riled up about some of these questions or the ways that he's handling it, I think that it's all of our jobs to look at this meeting, because we don't have any allegiance, like you just said in the last block about Nikki Haley's sons. We're Americans, so our first priority should be our own country. And we're saying, oh, what's the relationship here? Is this a personal beneficial relationship, or does this benefit America as a whole to be, I guess, rolling out the red carpet to the Saudi Crown Prince? He also then had a meeting after the Oval Office meeting that was publicized that was to a bunch of foreign donors and other people that align themselves with Saudi Arabia, and has said in that meeting multiple things, that we're going to be hiring tons of people that won't come off of our unemployment line, but then also in that same meeting said, and we're going to get involved in the Sudan conflict because Saudi said they really care about it. So I can say that America is going to try to help sort that out. And these are all things that are at friction with his current policy that he states publicly to his voters. So there's a lot going on, and people are just trying to figure out, is this all because of business ties that your family has? Are you just excusing any accusations of human rights violations? Do you not care that somebody who was reporting for an American outlet is being accused of being murdered by this guy? Or do we just want to ignore that? Like, we're not allowed to talk about it? And what's your attachment to this that you don't want to talk about it either? Because he's not the Crown Prince. He should allow for dialogue, especially if you have an open forum with American journalists. You should expect that at the very least, somebody who understands the responsibility is going to ask you some of these questions, including people at home, including your followers, including people in MAGA. These are all real questions.
I think in a broader sort of 40,000 foot view too, people are getting increasingly frustrated that Trump is so focused on foreign policy, and they would like him to turn to more domestic issues. On the MBS question, I mean, this is difficult because this is a country that we have a relationship with, whether we like it or not, right? Like, we rely on them for things like oil and to sort of be, to some extent, a peacemaker in the Middle East. And so when you're having these meetings with people like MBS, like Putin, like the Syrian president, you can have friendly relations with them, while also acknowledging that they're not like a good person, right? Like, I think it's part of being an adult and working in the foreign policy world that you're going to have to negotiate and deal with and have positive relationships with people who do things in their own country that you vehemently disagree with. I would, point to the fact that when Joe Biden met with MBS in his term, he gave the guy a fist bump, right? Like, that's part of being president, is you kind of have to swallow your pride sometimes and work with people who are probably awful people. I wanted to bring up that the WHCA this week had a big dust up over this visit. I don't know if you heard about this, but
I didn't. I'm like, what's the tea?
okay, oh yeah, I got the tea. So when a foreign leader comes to the White House, when there's really any kind of event at the White House involving other people, they send out a pool report with background, right? Like, here's who was in the meeting, here's what they're planning on talking about, here's the history of the relationship between these two leaders or two countries. So the foreign pool sends this background email out, and people start jumping on the pool thread, which is like a big no-no. You're not supposed to clutter the pool threads. And they're complaining that this background email did not include the accusation that MBS had Jamal Khashoggi killed.
Yeah.
And so people across the WHA are now arguing with each other, accusing like Saudi state media of being the only ones on the foreign pool that day. The president of the WHCA, Wei Zhejiang, chimes in and tells people that they shouldn't be making these complaints publicly on these pool threads. They should be made internally and that it's inappropriate. Then they fire back and say, like, no, it's inappropriate that nobody asked about Jamal Khashoggi. So there's like this whole just internal drama with the WHCA over this. And I was just reading the emails, like sipping my coffee, like, wow.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. You want to make sure that we're not engaging in anything, or in all ways, like making sure that we're downplaying. Like, it is what it is. Like you said, we have to have a relationship. I know that people were critical of Biden when he fist bumped. Like, it was like, oh my God. But I think what the difference with Biden is that he said he didn't want to sell these fighter jets to Saudi Arabia. He paused the sale, and President Trump tried to bring it up in his first term and then brought it back to life again in this term. And part of the conflict with that is that Saudi Arabia has probably an even better, and I don't know if that's overstated, but from my purview, relationship with China than they might have with the U.S. They do even more trade with China than the U.S. at a higher rate. So if their relationship is strong with China and we're giving them some of our top military equipment that the president is promising to them, people are going to have to ask questions about why, and then make sure that we're secure and China doesn't have access to any information that our security officials have said that they wouldn't want them to be privy to and make them uncomfortable.
Right.
So I think that needs to be clear. And also a big part of this, even before we get to that sale of these fighter jets to Saudi Arabia, that Saudi Arabia has made it crystal clear that the end game in making any trade deals with the U.S. that would be lucrative on both ends would be to have a two-state solution for Palestine and Israel, which the U.S. has not made clear on its own, right? A lot of foreign leadership and the UN have said that that's the way forward, but the U.S. has not taken that stance permanently, and that's a friction to our ally. I mean, I'm speaking from what it's been historically, a friction to our ally Israel, even though a lot of the world is calling for that. So how do we respond to that? And how does the president weigh all these relationships, knowing that Saudi, who is his good business partner, friend that maybe he's not involved with, but his family is benefiting from, is asking for these things. He already agreed to do things like jump into Sudan when people want him to focus on America. But they're also saying recognize Palestine as its own state and move forward to say that firmly, and the president hasn't done that yet. So how does he balance all his relationships right now? I think that that's a really interesting thing to watch throughout this whole thing as well.
Yeah, and I don't like the amount of business arrangements that his family members have with Saudi Arabia. It makes me deeply uncomfortable. I also did not like, if you were driving around DC Wednesday night, you know that there were all these roads shut down. The traffic was horrific. It took people like an hour to get a mile and a half. And it's because of those darn Saudi motorcades.
They don't do anything.
Get out of here.
In the Middle East, they don't do anything small. It's always going to be big. If you think we blocked the street for our president.
It was the worst traffic I've experienced in D.C. in probably like a year at least.
Oh, man.
It was that bad.
Okay, well, we have a lot more to talk about on Rising. You guys stay with us.